The post-election rally loses steam as investors await US inflation data. Entrepreneurs, ministers and global business leaders convene in Istanbul for this year's Africa Business Forum. And we take a look at the British economy as International Trade Week offers UK businesses new global opportunities. Hello, I'm Taiba Aydin with the latest business and finance news here on TRT World. Asian stocks slumped on Wednesday, tracking losses on Wall Street as the post-election rally stalled overnight. US bond yields unnerved investors as short-term treasury yields jumped to the highest level since late July. That spurred the dollar to a more than 6-month high as investors braced for the October CPI report, which could influence expectations for future Federal Reserve rate cuts. Meanwhile, Asian traders assessed wholesale inflation data out of Japan, which reached its highest since July last year at 3.4%. Let's get more on this now with Delene Wu in Melbourne. She's a research strategist at forex trading platform Pepperstone. Good to see you, Delene. Now, the post-election rally seems to have lost steam. Tell us why that is.
Well, I think the market has already somehow priced in Trump's victory, and the Republicans are on the upper hand of Congress. So the recent developments, like, for example, Trump announcing that Elon Musk and Ramaswamy will lead the Department of Government Efficiency. I mean, they aren't really surprising the market, right? So given that, I think a bit of a profit taking is quite normal, especially like now that everyone is waiting for some new catalysts. So for me, one big thing to watch is obviously who Trump picks for Treasury Secretary, with Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick both in the running. We should know who gets the job by the end of this one. So Bessent seems to be the front runner for me, and he's got some strong opinions on Fed and J Powell, and he's even suggested creating a shadow Fed chair role, which would basically reduce Powell's influence in the year leading up to his term ending in May 2026. So market aren't fans of government messing with monetary policy. So I reckon any signs of the Fed losing some independence could push risk premium higher and ramp up volatility. It's absolutely something to keep an eye on for me.
And following Trump's victory, we saw Bitcoin surge to all-time highs, reaching just under 90,000 and heading towards that $100,000 mark. But it seems to be going in the opposite direction now.
Well, for this, I think Bitcoin's recent pullback is mostly just technical, since it's still trading about, it was trading about 30% above its 50-day moving average. But fundamentally, I see huge upside potential, and it could even break $100,000 by the end of this year for me. Because for one, institutional inflows have surged since the election, especially into Bitcoin ETFs, which shows more support for major players. And specifically, a big move that caught my eye is MicroStrategy CEO Michael Saylor adding 27,200 Bitcoins, which is relatively equivalent to $2 billion US between October 31st and November 10. I mean, it's not just a market move, it's quite a confidence booster that lifts the whole space. So the talk around Trump's SEC chair pick is another positive for Bitcoin from my personal perspective. While the next chair isn't likely to, let the markets go wild, a more friendly regulatory approach would definitely help Bitcoin's long-term growth. So personally, I'm still quite bullish on Bitcoin, and I think any short-term dip will probably be pretty shallow.
All right, Delene Wu, interesting analysis there. We will have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
The UK's 4th International Trade Week is underway, offering free events and workshops to help businesses tap into global opportunities. 36% of UK companies feel, quote, very confident about international trade, up from 22% last year. That's according to the latest reports by Santander. Exporters expect global sales to make up a significant portion of revenue, especially with growth projections rising in key European markets. Minister for Exports Gareth Thomas highlighted new export support initiatives to be announced this week. Steve Keen is an economist and honorary professor at UCL and joins us now from Amsterdam. Hi there, Steve. Now, how are UK businesses responding to economic pressures in international trade?
I think they're going to have to, because I expect what the government's doing on domestic trade to be actually quite a strong negative for the UK economy. So it's the only source of growth that's likely to come to the UK economy, given the policies the government's putting into place for cutting their deficit, is likely to come from the export sector. So I hope the British firms really have to respond to that. They're not going to find much growth on the domestic front.
And what sectors are showing most potential for export growth?
Well, this is one of the long-term problems for the UK, because 40 years ago, Maggie Thatcher made the decision to forget about manufacturing and go into services as the growth industry. And that's been an unsuccessful strategy. They've got a large trade deficit as a result of that, as well as needing to import a large part of their energy. And they don't really have the manufacturing flexibility. So it's only going to be isolated companies which have bucked that trend, things like the Dysons of the world and so on, that are going to find it easy to expand. Getting that manufacturing capability to rise is going to lead to more imports as well for most companies. So the UK is not well placed to become an export-led economy.
And what support initiatives are expected to be introduced?
Well, there's been a large number of those, things like even to the distinct point of talking about developing free trade zones, though how well that goes is difficult to say. But when you look at the focus of the Labor government, it's entirely on export-led growth. So their very first major economic congress was on trade and exports. So that's the range of initiatives to encourage firms to get into exporting. They will certainly exist. And they probably will be oversubscribed, I imagine, given what's happening on the domestic front.
Right, and on the sidelines of COP29, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan met with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and they discussed increasing the trade volume between the two countries. What efforts are currently being made to help increase this trade volume?
Well, as I said, this is not an area where I can claim expertise. I'm more on the impact on domestic policy. But certainly everything, the entire focus of the UK government is on promoting exports. So they're likely to be very agreeable to any moves about removing trade restrictions. They're going to be cutting tariffs. Of course, the Americans will be talking about increasing tariffs. So I think you'll find the UK is very amenable to increasing trade volumes. Whether they're going to be successful or not for their own export side is one thing, but certainly that it'll be available for Turkish companies to take advantage of any openings. These always had to be reciprocal. So any attempt by the UK to increase their exports is likely to make it possible for other countries to increase their exports to the UK.
All right, Steve Keen, we will have to leave it there. Thank you very much, as always.
Welcome.
Now, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has asked world leaders at a UN climate summit to take notice of the environmental disaster caused by Israel as it continues to attack Palestinians and Lebanon. He made those remarks at COP29 in Azerbaijan. TRT World's diplomatic correspondent Hassan Abdullah has more.
Baku's Olympic Stadium is hosting marathon sessions of a different kind. It's the conference of the parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or COP29 for short. Leaders and representatives from nearly 200 countries are here. And as the world braces for the warmest year to date and plenty of talking at previous COPs, they're being told to get their act together.
Climate finance is not charity, it's an investment. Climate action is not optional, it's an imperative. Both are indispensable to a livable world for all humanity and a prosperous future for every nation on Earth.
The UN chief's comments follow complaints from many developing countries. They say the developed countries, many of which are also the biggest polluters, are failing to fulfill their financial pledges.
The challenge of climate financing for the global South countries like Somalia and much of the African countries really needs to be taken stock of as part of the stock-taking exercise at the COP last time, is to understand what are the set of very peculiar and specific challenges that these countries face. Many of these countries, as we speak, are already having a lot of debt burden. When the very livelihoods and the dignity and independence of our people and productivity is totally disrupted by one cycle of events after the other, and people are caught in a vicious cycle of poverty.
At the summit, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called on the world leaders to pay heed to another disaster.
While we are talking about leaving a fairer world for future generations, Israel's unlawful, immoral and unconscionable attacks targeting Palestine and Lebanon continue. Unfortunately, the current government continues to massacre people, including children, women and the elderly, while also causing a great environmental massacre. The chemicals that have seeped into the soil and groundwater due to Israeli attacks have already darkened the future of the children of Gaza. We believe that those who caused this serious humanitarian and environmental disaster should be held accountable in international courts.
He also highlighted Turkish efforts for the environment, including large-scale afforestation, efficient water and waste management, and much more. During his visit, Erdogan also met the leaders of Azerbaijan, Britain, Kazakhstan, Moldova, and Montenegro. In addition to bilateral relations, he also talked about the situation in the Palestinian territories, Lebanon, and Ukraine. The Turkish leader says these conflicts cannot be ignored if the world is serious about the environment. Hassan Abdullah, TRT World, Baku.
Now a quick look at some of the other top business stories from around the world. Argentina's inflation slowed to 2.7% in October, the lowest in 3 years, with the annual rate dipping below 200% for the first time in a year, now at 193%. President Javier Milei has hailed the falling prices as a victory in his battle against the country's worst economic crisis in over 2 decades. But inflation remains very high by global standards. Despite headlines suggesting a slowdown in demand for electric vehicles, sales continue to rise and are on track for a record year in 2024. Global sales of fully electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles increased by 35% in October compared to the same month last year. China led the market with a 54% surge in sales, significantly boosting global numbers. Volkswagen has increased its planned investment in a joint venture with Rivian to $5.8 billion. The company is aiming to integrate Rivian's advanced software and electrical technology across Volkswagen's brands. Shares in Rivian, valued at over $11 billion, rose nearly 9% in after-hours trading following the announcement. The collaboration will kick off with the Volkswagen lineup in 2027, with potential expansion to other brands. And Boeing delivered only 14 jets in October due to a weeks-long strike that halted production. The strike affected key models like the 737 MAX, delaying Boeing's goal to increase output. With workers now returning, the company expects full production to resume in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, Boeing has nearly 200 fewer orders in its books from the past 3 months amid cancellations and adjustments. Istanbul was busy with various business leaders and entrepreneurs attending this year's Africa Business Expo and Forum. Africa is a region that's becoming more and more of a thriving economic hub, making this year's forum very important for joint partnerships with Turkey. Emre Boz was at the event.
Ministers and international businesses from all around the world have gathered here in Istanbul for the Africa Business Expo and Forum. Turkish companies and international businesses want to use events like this to expand their networks and economic ties. So, speaking here and listening to being here and listening to all of the speakers, everyone was buzzing about the need to improve economic ties between Turkey and Africa in areas like finance, trade, technology, and investment. So what makes these two partners really important? The last 2 decades saw bilateral trade soar to over 800%. And analysts are saying that this year, that number will hit $50 billion. And Africa is becoming a very, very important economic region. Its GDP last year surpassed $3.1 trillion, making it a very, very important economic thriving hub. And Turkey is also a key economic player, not just geographically being a bridge between Asia and Europe, but also becoming an economic powerhouse. Its GDP surpassed $1 trillion last year for the first time to $1.1 trillion. So events like this that want to foster that win-win situation for Turkey and African countries will help both partners expand and grow in their economies.
There are many things that Turkish business society doesn't know about Africa at the moment, even though our business and trade relations have exceeded $35 billion. So there were really good, knowledgeable speeches today from the ministers and some senators. And what we are thinking at the moment, events like this brings people together to get their awareness level about each other, what they do, and so forth. Turkey in construction sector is quite big. Out of the 259 largest construction companies in the world, 41 of them are Turkish. So construction would be definitely number one, especially today the head of the Constructors Association of Turkey, actually Union of Turkey, was here. He gave a speech. The amount of projects that Turkish companies are being built, whether it's infrastructure or anything related to construction, have exceeded $85 billion in Africa, in the continent. So that's quite a big number. So I would say construction would definitely come number one. Then textile, furniture, food, FMCG. These are so many other sectors that are either exported to Africa or Turkish companies are going there, coming up with partnerships with local companies to produce locally in different regions in Africa. So we try to make this event to bring all people who would like to engage with Africa so that they can explore these possibilities better. In the past, many nations who have colonized African states, they just took. They haven't given back anything except a few examples that would be very odd cases. Turkey looks at it as a business. I'm talking about the business society, and as a government, it's always about a win-win for both sides. When you start thinking win-win for both sides, and if everybody's benefiting, then that's a good business and it's sustainable.
For more on this, we're joined by MTAR Muhammad in Lagos, Nigeria. He's an international finance and economic analyst. Good to see you, MTAR. Now, the trade partnership between Turkey and Africa has grown 800% recently. What factors have contributed to this?
Thank you for having me. I think most of the factors that have contributed have to do with contractual agreement, which has to do with construction especially. I think most Turkey companies are into construction in Africa. So that has done there with trade, and most of this trade are mostly aviation type of trade, largely driven by Turkey Air. So but for other big time Turkey business companies in terms of what we pride Turkey to be, like in the area of vehicle manufacturing, in the area of food and agriculture, especially agro-based agriculture, in the area of machineries, in the area of transportation, trucks. We've not seen so much of that in sub-Saharan Africa, especially. And Turkey's biggest partner in Africa is South Africa, where they do about 22-point-something%. When you look at in sub-Saharan Africa, which happen to be the live wire of the African economy, you'll see Turkey present is in Nigeria about 2.62%, so 2.62%. So there's still a lot to be done, a lot of improvement have gone, but like I said, it's almost likely on contractual agreement. We are not seeing Turkey companies coming to set up with smaller business, which is African largely is largely driven by smaller business. We are not seeing Turkey companies taking advantage of the huge vibrancies of the African continent. As the African continent have a large numbers of youth, and these youth are involved in ICT infrastructure. So there's still a lot to be done, but like I said, they've done well. But when you look at Turkey trade partners, you talk about Germany, you talk about the UK, you talk about Italy, you talk about you talk about the United States, but you don't see so much trade between Turkey and Africa.
Right, and how are local economies in both regions benefiting from these trade relationships?
Well, for the locals, I think, like I said, it's not so much. You are not seeing those smaller business benefiting from Turkey's economic prosperity or bringing in their expertise, like what you see with smaller business with China. Like I say, you're talking about the vibrant sector. Let me give you an example of Nigeria. We have one of the most vibrant car manufacturing sector. We've not seen so much of the Turkey cars in Nigeria, but what we normally get from Turkey is maybe the accessory like tires, vehicle tires, but we've not seen those Turkey trucks, and the steel industry is growing in Turkey, but we are not seeing that in Africa. So I think mostly what we are seeing, like I say, is construction. Of recent, the Lagos State government signed have an agreement with Soma, a Turkey company, to construct the second international airport in the Lekki area of Lagos State. So those are the type of agreement we normally see. We've not seen that synergy between a small SME company partner with a big company in Turkey to drive technology to Africa and create employment.
And what challenges do you think need to be addressed in order to expand these trade relations?
A lot of challenges. One of those challenges are immigration in terms of visa procurement. We give it to them, but again, there need to be an improvement in that place. The government have done well, but they still have to do more in that area, in the area of support, especially for agro-business, livestock, especially in the sub-Saharan Africa, and military assistance. Yes, also it's a lot because of the fight of terrorism. I think Turkey have a military presence in Somalia, but I think they should extend it to other parts of Africa. So that also is area. Then in the area of construction, like we say, that is there, but I think more need to be done. And then also looking at in the area of currency swap, because what happened is that most African countries, they want to transfer business with Turkey, they will need to change their currency to the United States dollar. So we'll see where we'll see more trade volume between African country and Turkey. Then we'll begin to see that currency swap. Then that will drive more businesses, because I think most of African country business are with China, because of the type of deals they have, especially with the smaller companies. So we expect Turkey to be one of Africa's greatest partners, like you said.
Interesting analysis there, Mukhtar. Unfortunately, we will have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure, always. Thank you for having me.
Now, a new artist is making waves in the world of high-end art auctions, but this is not a person. It's a robot named Aida, known for creating thought-provoking art. Aida has just set an auction record. Christina Simic has the details.
In a remarkable blend of technology and creativity, Aida the robot has taken the art world by storm. Its latest artwork is a portrait of mathematician Alan Turing. It sold at auction for over $1.3 million, setting a new record for robot-created art. Aida is more than a machine. It mimics human creativity using cameras to see, algorithms to think, and a robotic arm to paint. Its creator Aidan Meller describes this as a groundbreaking moment in art history.
It's been a really exciting time. Obviously, this is a special moment. Aida makes history as the first humanoid realistic robot artist to submit work to a major auction house.
The painting, called AI God, is not just a portrait. It is a statement that aims to spark conversations about technology's role in art and the broader world. It also wants viewers to reflect on how we use AI, especially as it becomes part of everyday life.
The value of my artwork lies in its ability to provoke thought and spark conversations about the complex relationship between technology, humanity, and creativity. The key value of my work is its capacity to serve as a catalyst for dialogue about emerging technologies.
The sale of Ada's painting is not just a milestone in the art world, it is also significant for business. The high price tag shows that collectors see value in AI-driven art. This could mark a new era for the market. Art created by machines might become a profitable trend, merging technology with culture. The success also highlights a growing business angle, how AI intersects with creativity and intellectual property.
I do not aim to replace human artists. I aim to inspire viewers to think about how we use AI positively, while remaining conscious of its risks and limitations.
The art world, known for tradition, is now seeing AI's potential to transform its future. But as Ada's work goes down in history, it raises big questions. Are robots the future of art? And how will this impact human creativity? For now, Ada's journey has just begun, and its success is a sign that AI in art and business is here to stay. Christina Simic, TRT World.
Well, that's all your business news for now. Thanks for watching. The Newsmakers is next.